Hello my friends and welcome back. It's Monday. Happy beginning of the week for you. But you know what didn't have a happy beginning of the week? Yes, that's right. The Assad's regime in Syria, Russian-backed Assad's regime, that is no more. Throughout the weekend, the Syrian civil war culminated. Altogether, the process took about 7 days for the entire regime to collapse. Now, in Friday, I remember covering this topic 2 days ago, and still majority of the country was under the control of the Assad regime. Well, today, by the time you're watching this video, the entire country is under control of the rebels. Now, disclaimer before we begin, I will only show you most important photos, videos and bits of information to save your time, so by the time we're done with this video you will know only the most important. Also, I keep it simple. Now, I will cover in this video topics based on geographical location: Syria, USA, Ukraine, Romania and Georgia. Also, if you like what I do, you can support the channel and buy me a coffee. Link is in the description below. If you become a monthly member, I will send you this Rehi patch. Now, to ease you into the topic, I will just show you a 20-second segment of Putin in 2017 in Syria holding a speech. And this is a very good trailer or a sneak peek for what you're about to see in this video. 2 bases have been established here in Syria and will operate permanently. It's talking about Russian bases when they were established. Khmeimim Air Base and Tartus Naval Base. In Tartus and here in Khmeimim. And if the terrorists raise their heads again, it's talking about the rebels, by the way, we will strike them in a way that they have not yet seen. This is the promise of the Russian president in 2017 to Assad's regime and to the, rebels. Well, now let's get into modern day, present day. I'm talking about Monday today. Before we look at the situation right now in Syria, I want you to know what happened Friday, Saturday and Sunday at the exact time those things happened. Where we left off at Friday, rebels were advancing extremely fast and Homs were just about to fall. Well, on Saturday, Kurdish forces have reportedly begun blocking certain Russian military facilities in the Trans-Euphrates region, according to Rebar, most biggest Russian military blogger. He adds that Russian positions at the oil refinery in Homs desert are also blocked. So Russian forces have been blockaded in several locations, but not yet all across the country. At the time frame we are in Saturday, 2 days ago. Fast forward a few hours, yes, I'm talking about below 10 hours, and the situation is already completely changed. The last 2 sections of Syria yet to fall are Latakia and Tartus, and these 2 sections right on the shore of the Mediterranean, and they're home to 2 only Russian military bases in Syria, Khmeimim and Tartus. Fast forward, again, only a few hours, and the rebels enter Tartus, the city home to Russian naval base. Russian warships are based in the local Mediterranean port. Russian telegram channels say that Russian bases in Syria have received orders to destroy heavy armored vehicles and all related documentation to prevent them from ending up in the hands of opposition. Now, yes, this is already almost Sunday, late evening of Saturday, and all Russian forces in Syria got an order from Moscow to destroy all of their military equipment that faces a threat of being captured by the rebels. By the way, you would assume Russians were being evacuated, but wait, you're in for a surprise. Around that time, a private jet started flying out of Damascus, the capital, and we have the flight path right here, and it disappeared from the radar. So there are rumors that it was being shot down, that it was shot down using an S-300, a Russian anti-air defense system. These are only rumors, we cannot confirm anything, but it did disappear off the radar. So by the time you see this video, you might have more information on what happened to this private jet from Damascus. Now, the rumors are that it was Assad's plane, that it was shot down and maybe he was on it. Again, cannot confirm anything at this point. Talking about planes heading in and out of Syria, this is the time, this is early morning Sunday, when Russians finally decided to try to evacuate at least what they can evacuate. And we saw 2 Ilyushin-76 transport aircraft going to Latakia airbase or Khmeimim airbase, and these are transport planes, so supposedly they were taking Russian troops from Khmeimim airbase away from Syria to evacuate them. The thing is, there are Russian assets, or at least were Russian assets, all across Syria, so if they only evacuated with 2 Ilyushin-76, by the time we're making this video right now, there still might be thousands of Russian troops and military equipment left all across Syria. Surrendered or not surrendered, it's there, it's not evacuated. Because there were only 2 Ilyushin-76, that's it. So we know that the Russians got the order yesterday, Sunday, to leave the port. Naval assets got the order, but they only started leaving the port of Tartus yesterday, on Sunday. The Ukrainian Guru confirms that Russian Mediterranean flotilla ships are fleeing their Syrian ports of Tartus. The Russian Navy frigate Admiral Grigorovich escorted a cargo ship out of the port this morning. Additionally, the Guru reports that Russian forces are departing Latakia. So this is Sunday. Yesterday, early morning, we have information of Russian ships leaving Tartus and information of Ilyushin-76 carrying Russian troops away from Khmeimim airbase. Around that same time, an order came from the An order came from the Syrian general staff, so the military leadership, to all of the Assad's regime troops to lay down their arms and go home. Basically, give up. We have given up. The regime has fallen. An official order from the general staff. After this order, majority of the Syrian soldiers did so. They changed back to their civilian clothing and laid down their arms where they were carrying them. Later we go through footage of just countless of machine guns laying on the streets, but some of the units didn't do it. Maybe they were afraid of the repercussions that would follow because of them being part of the Assad's regime when the rebels take over. So we get footage like this. Syrian regime soldiers defecting to Iraq with their military equipment. Footage shows several T-55 tanks, BMP-1s, BRM-1s, trucks carrying 122 D-38 howitzers, and pickups packed with infantry, at least hundreds of them. And we already know that Iraqi special forces have accepted these hundreds of surrendering troops from Syria. These troops, you couldn't say they're defecting, but more seeking refuge from Iraq. A few hours after this, so now we're at almost midday or noon of Sunday, this is how the Syrian state television responded to the ongoing events. State television. Victory of the Great Syrian Revolution and overthrow of the criminal Assad regime. And then we get this video, this footage at the same time. So yesterday noon, Sunday noon, former Syrian Prime Minister Mohammed Qazi al-Jalali leaves his home and hands over power to the Syrian Department of Military Operations, led by the HTS. So this is like this formal, or more or less symbolic, handing over of the power to the transition government, or transition regime, group, however you want to call them. They are the rebels, and they are now going to start the formation of an official Syrian government, but at the transition period, it's going to be a military rule by the rebels. Now we jump to Europe, because there are, Assad regime and terror caused over 12 million Syrians to leave Syria into Europe and into the Western nations, Western states. 12 million Syrians are refugees in the world right now. Well, we get this footage. Massive celebrations across Europe. These are the scenes in Berlin as hundreds of thousands of people can now return home to Syria. Assad made at least 12 million into refugees worldwide. The reduction of refugees will also declaw the far-right movement, since it removes many people who were cast as the negative image. Anti-refugee sentiments were exploited by Russia to cast a net of collaborators to infiltrate the governments across Europe and North America. This is not only the collapse of the Russian Empire abroad outside of Russia, it is also a collapse of Russian disinformation web and control assets all across the Western world. And then, of course, we get footage like this. This is, I know it's a saying, but this is the reality. This is the road to Damascus. These are all the civilians returning to Damascus. Assad's regime has fallen, and many of them just want to go back home. The traffic jam is insane. It's one of the largest in the world, and people are just leaving their cars and walking to Damascus. Now we have caught up, you know, the most important information that came out Saturday and Sunday, and now we are at present day Monday in Syria, and I will open a new topic called Russian assets in Syria, Russian military personnel. How do they react? What is their situation? Well, first of all, let's go to one of Russia's two bases, which is Tartus military naval base. This is historic. The city of Tartus has been liberated, and we are here with our people from all sects. Christians, Alawites, Sunnis, Druze and Ismailis. The Syrian people are number one. To our people in Tartus, work with us to build our country. We will present a model to be proud of. So, this video is taken in the city of Tartus, and with this, Russia lost their only and the most important Mediterranean port, through which they funneled all of their military aid, equipment, funding and weaponry to Africa. What about these Russian pockets all across Syria that I was mentioning? Well, in this video you see one of them. The Russians are surrounded by rebels in Syria and have taken up a circular defense. So these Russians have not given up. Well, some of them have, some of them haven't. And they are surrounded. So if they fight to the death, so be it. If they surrender, so be it. Maybe Putin's government, Putin's regime will negotiate some kind of a prisoner exchange with the rebel governments. We don't know. What we know now is all of them have not yet surrendered, and still to this hour there are these pockets of Russian resistance in Syria. In this video, we can see a Russian soldier walking through a military base of Assad's troops, wondering where everybody went. There are countless uniforms and Kalashnikovs on the ground, just thrown on the ground. It seems like, well, that's the reality, that the Assad's troops just dropped everything and went home. Well, I don't have to hypothesize on this because we have an actual video of these troops walking home. There's so much good footage coming out of Syria right now. I have, like I said, I only show you the most important. Well, this is one of the Assad's base's troops walking home. There's plenty of more footage. And if you go to any media source and type in Syrian civil war, look at you can just go and check out everything yourself. All the links are in the description also. But this Russian soldier cannot fit it into his head why everybody left. Well, I'm here to help out with the answer to this question. Here I bring to you a video of Assad's regime soldier very clearly answering this Russian soldier's question, why everybody left. I quote, "Iran and Russia sold us out, and Bashar al-Assad sold us out. Stop lying. He sold us out. We are now like Gaza, left like dogs, women and children. 14 years we paid with our blood, and you spent hiding behind..." Oh my God. Well, let's say Assad's regime troops are disillusioned. So Russia losing their two biggest and only military bases on the shore of Mediterranean, it is the loss of their business model also. By the way, billions of dollars of worth of gold and diamonds were funneled through these two bases from Africa to Moscow. I'll read you a thread what it means for Russia. The collapse of Assad regime is for Russia a far worse catastrophe than most realize. It will take me many posts, and you will see more and more like this coming in the coming days and weeks. And yes, I will keep that information coming your way also. This is brought to us by Tendar from X. Here I will show the implications on Africa. We get to the point now. As it is well known, one of Russia's business models is to prop up dictatorships and putschist regimes all around the globe, including Africa. Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Central African Republic are just a few to name of. Sudanese civil war is even directly kept on fire by Russia. The latest peace processes by the UNSC was stopped by Russia's veto. War and suffering are not only a good business for Russian war industry, the only operational industry in Russia, but especially for their most infamous mercenary group, Wagner. In exchange for Russia's help to prop up those regimes across Africa, Wagner received direct control of lucrative deals for mining operations, especially gold and blood diamonds. The exploitation operations are executed in the most ruthless way, with utter disgrace on human life. However, logistically, Russia always relied on the Syrian bases to fly out the riches and fly in mercenaries. They always had to pass Khmeimim, were going in either direction. It is also safe to assume that much of the operations in Africa were coordinated in Khmeimim. Without this base, all operations in Africa were virtually impossible, or at the very least much harder to accomplish. And harder means more expensive. This business model could only thrive for as long as the puppet Assad was in Damascus, which, as we all know, is history now. What this all means for the putschist regime in Wagner alike remains to be seen, but it might give the African people suffering under them and Wagner a new chance to get rid of the Russian influence, the same way as the Syrian people ended it. The collapse of this business model for Russia, they just lost their vital logistical waypoint to Africa, which funnels in tens of billions of dollars into Russia a year. So losing that is a direct loss for Putin, because his war machine in Ukraine is funded by a business model like this, and it just took a massive hit. Now let's go. I will pivot a topic again. This was Russians in Syria. Now we'll go to Israelis in Syria. Israelis did react very heavily in the last 2 days for the fall of the Assad's regime, and they reacted with bombardment. The government quarters in Damascus is on fire, presumably following in Israeli airstrikes. Buildings housing Assad's intelligence, customs and immigration departments are burning. If the strikes were indeed done by Israel, it's a clear attempt to destroy sensitive files. Well, either sensitive files, missiles, ammunition, weaponry, whatever it is, Israel did not want this to be handed over to the rebels, so they decided to destroy it. In addition to government residents being bombarded in Damascus, the Mesech air base not far from Damascus was also under Israeli airstrikes. It was possible that the goal was to destroy the military equipment before the fighters, the rebels, got to it. Following this, Israel started a land invasion of Syria, starting from the Golan Heights, occupying the Syrian side of the Golan Heights. Following its capture this morning by Israel's special forces, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu traveled to Mount Hermon on the Syrian side of the Golan Heights, with him stating in the video, "This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers." So, what dangers is he talking about? Well, nobody knows what the new rebel government is going to do, if there's going to be a civil war infighting between the two rebel factions. Everything is possible. But we have many videos like this one, and I'll read you the message of it. This is a Syrian rebel giving an interview to Israeli Channel 11. "Dear neighbors, friends from the friendly state of Israel, I'm talking to you, the people of Dara are joyous after Assad's rule was diminished. I'm speaking on my behalf and all of the free people of Syria. Our next phase will be harmony and peace with the state of Israel. We don't know it until we see it, but if the new Syrian government formed out of rebels indeed is peaceful towards Israel and cooperative, then this is a first. Then it's a totally new power dynamic in the Middle East of Russia and Iran losing an ally and Israel gaining one. But we don't know until we see it. Anyway, Israel is not waiting around. They are already, as of today, fortifying the border, building out offensives on the border of Syria. And you can see it on the video. They call it the New East. Now let's see how Iran is reacting to the fall of one of their most important allies in the Middle East. Fault lines are emerging in Iran over the handling of Syria. Younger radicals are enraged about the abandonment. This will cause Khomeini major problems. The internal backlash inside Iran over the senior commanders' handling of Syria has been overlooked. They found out too late and made late decisions. So young hardliners in Iran are blaming the seniors and oligarchs for handling the situation very poorly and reacting very late. They're blaming their own superiors and bosses of failing in Syria. So finger pointing has begun in Iran, and I believe in Russia also. And then President Biden of the United States of America came out with this sudden statement. I was not ready for this. President Biden announces U.S. involvement in Syria rebellion, wants to directly help the people to seize on the new opportunity by establishing a new government or regime. Biden also hinted at sending aid to Syria. Our approach has shifted to balance of power in the Middle East. We now see new opportunities. The US will support Syria's neighbors, including Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, and Israel. We will help ensure stability in eastern Syria, protecting any of our personnel against any threats. Another interesting video emerged from Syria, and in this video you can see a true attempt of cooperation in the future. If this really works, it's beautiful. Again, we gotta see it to believe it. But in this video in Latakia, Sunni, Alawite and Christian religious leaders reportedly gathered at the Hurriyeh mosque to discuss the situation after Assad's regime fell, and reaffirmed the city's commitment to peaceful coexistence amidst recent developments. I would love to see that, but again, I need to see it before I can report this happening. Now, a ton of videos has appeared about Assad's palace, Assad's bunkers, Assad car collections. Let's go through them just once so you can see what he built out, how many cars he owned. I think it's interesting to see. So, this is the personal bunker of Assad's younger brother, and you can see it in the video that it's truly like Half-Life 2. It's tunnels upon tunnels underground, built out, well lit, metal doors, automatic openings. I mean, it's massive security underground. There's plenty of weapons, gold, money, everything stashed around in this place. So I think Half-Life 3 might be about Syrian tunnels. So that previous video was Assad's younger brother, but now this video is Assad's own tunnels. And again, the Half-Life continues. You press a button, automatic doors open, massive metal doors open, and there's another door behind it which also automatically opens, and you get into this massive tunnel system on the ground. I mean, whoa, nobody knew this existed. In this video you can see rebels taking over Assad's personal palace in the capital of Damascus, and it resembles Yanukovych's palace in Kyiv, which I visited. Almost looks exactly the same. Underneath that palace is a massive garage, and it houses over 100 luxury cars. This is Assad's personal luxury car collection. I mean, I love these. I love cars, man. I would love to have these cars, but it shows the corruption of the system. We have Rolls Royces, Audis, we have everything here. Alright, I will end the topic of Assad's tunnels and cars and bunkers, but now we will look at two very short threads about the aftermath. It only just happened, so we can only hypothesize what's going to happen. Time will tell, and I'll keep you in the loop. But here are two of the important hypotheses of the future of the area. So many are asking what comes next after the fall of Assad. But the question will take time when we look at Syria herself. More urgent is the question what happens abroad, and here you do have to go far in order to precise the question. Lebanon is now in a unique situation which hasn't been there since the civil war in the 70s and 80s. Yes, Lebanon has a border with Israel and Syria. That's the two countries. And now the new government of the rebels is supposedly pro-Israeli or wants to cooperate with Israelis. So Lebanon's border is now with two countries who are allies, supposedly. The situation is a total change of the power balance in the Middle East. Hezbollah has been severely weakened even before Assad's fall, but now they're completely cut off from Iran. The important land routes from Tehran to Beirut is severed. Planes from Tehran cannot fly directly at all to Beirut, and supply from the sea takes time to be established. Syria is now an enemy of Hezbollah and Iran. The power structures in the region have completely flipped, and it is fair to say that we are in uncharted waters. And another very short bit of information comes from the HTS rebel group leader. Hezbollah is next. This is his threat and promise. Leader of HTS and presumptive interim leader of Syria, Abu Muhammad al-Yalani, I quote, "We are open to friendship with everyone in the region, including Israel. We have no enemies except the Assad regime, Hezbollah, and Iran. What Israel did against Hezbollah in Lebanon helped us a lot. Now we will take care of the rest." Again, these are only words, but if we see cooperative actions between the new Syrian government and Israel, then this is a death blow to Iran's power in the region. Israel and Syria could be a power couple in the area. With this, my friends, I will end the topic of Syrian civil war for today, and I will keep you in the loop in the coming days. Next video is on Wednesday. I will go on with other topics. I will jump to Ukraine now. And in Ukraine, I mean, this would be the top headline today if there wasn't for Syria, but Ukraine used their sea drones to a beautiful effect. They used their sea drones, sea babies, that were equipped with kamikaze drones. So, sea drone, that on top of it is a kamikaze drone that lifts off and does extra damage. It is genius and it is beautiful. So what did they do with them? I want to watch the video with you because we don't get much footage like that. It is a Russian oil and gas tower near Crimea. I mean, it's occupied. It was Ukrainian, now it's Russian. So they decided to attack these towers because also these towers serve as a military observation point for the Russians. And they rammed them with their sea drones and beautiful explosions happened. Bada bing, bada boom. And then kamikaze drones lifted off from the sea drones and dropped explosions on the towers. I mean, all of this is just fantastic, phenomenal. Damn, this is some Hollywood stuff. On another news during the weekend, Notre-Dame, I don't know how to say Notre-Dame, well, one of the most famous churches or cathedrals in the world, and definitely the most famous one in France, is reopened. This is the symbol of Paris, in a way, next to Eiffel Tower, and it burned. But now it will be reopened, and everybody was there. And when I say everybody, I mean Zelensky and Trump and Macron and even the Georgian president. And this is the video of Zelensky arriving to the opening ceremony of the Notre-Dame. Sorry for butchering the name. Here you can see him meeting Macron. They are best pals, they're friendly, hugging. And now Zelensky enters the cathedral and see what people do. All the leaders of the world and politicians and famous people who are there, what they do? They stand up and they give him an applause of welcome. This is a beautiful sight to see. At the very same ceremony, Donald Trump was already there, and in this video you can see him greeting the Georgian standing president who is pro-people, pro-protesters, against the Russian-backed government of Georgian Dream in Georgia. And they are greeting each other with smiles, always nice to see. Now in this video we can see Trump, Macron and Zelensky together, and already getting these three together is a massive accomplishment. But I know I shouldn't do this and nobody should. It's a tiny sign, maybe I'm wishful thinking here, but Trump wore a yellow tie with blue suit, meeting Zelensky in Notre-Dame. Now, if you want to say it's nothing, it's a coincidence, so be it, but it is the Ukrainian flag color, so I will take it as I want to take it, as a good sign. And here you can see Trump meeting Zelensky later, and Macron is also there, of course, coming in the middle, of course. A fantastic trio to be seen together. Now for a moment, let's jump to Moscow, because remember at Friday I covered the topic of Moscow and St. Petersburg nightclubs being raided. Well, it happened again. At this time, the art space, The Happening, and I say again, it's an art space, it's not a nightclub, it's called The Happening. Still, it's raided by Putin's forces in St. Petersburg. Men are being gathered, they're being handed the military summons. Basically, it's a forceful mobilization. So, if I was a male living in St. Petersburg or Moscow, I would not go to nightclubs anymore. And this is a periodic happening now. And what the Russian special forces were surprised to find is special rooms at the back of the nightclubs with BDSM, or bondage, discipline, sadism, masochism. People like that stuff. Of course, people in Moscow want to have fun, want to party, right? So, yeah, not a good public image for Putin's traditional valued Russia. Now, my friends, let's jump to Romania for a very brief summary of everything that has happened. I keep it very short for you, but I never covered the end of the topic of Călin Gheorghescu's pro-Russian backed TikTok campaign, how he almost became a president. A snapshot of the situation in Romania. A largely unknown far-right candidate shocks the nation by unexpectedly winning the first round of presidential elections. Then, the political establishment was caught completely off guard. Demands a recount of the votes, suspecting irregularities, so they thought it's a fraud in the election. But, what do you know? The votes were meticulously counted, recounted, revealing no evidence of fraud. The first round of results were validated. The political establishment then uncovers Russian interference in the far-right candidate's campaign, facilitated by advanced algorithms exploiting TikTok platform. The narrative pivots to suggest that Russian interference and TikTok ads not only influenced the voter sentiment, but also drove citizens en masse to polling stations to vote for pro-Russian far-right candidate. The implication that illegal ads on social media now hold the power to galvanize the democratic participation. Despite the lack of irregularities in voting process, the Constitutional Court steps in, annulling the first round of the election entirely. So, the Constitutional Court in Romania basically cancelled the first round of elections, or said that they are illegitimate because they're foreign influence, pro-Russian candidates. It's good, it's a victory for Romania that they stopped this election. New election will be held, but it's also a loss for Romania, showing that Russia has a massive power of foreign influence in Western countries, which needs to be addressed yesterday. So, the situation still unfolds in Romania since during the weekend in Brazov at Bogdan Pecir house, the man that financed Călin Gheorghescu's TikTok presidential campaign with reportedly $350,000. The house was raided. And then it was followed by the European Commission, who gave TikTok a 24-hour ultimatum to send all information regarding Călin Gheorghescu's campaign. I will keep you up to date to what's the verdict on all of this in Romania. Now we'll jump to USA. And Trump came out with an interesting communication in an interview. And let's just watch it. It's in English. I don't even read the subtitles.
NATO's taken advantage of us because we were, look, two things. Number one, they take advantage of us on trade, meaning the European nations, okay, like terrible. They don't take our cars, they don't take our food product, they don't take anything. It's a disgrace. And on top of that, we defend them. So it's a double whammy. So let me just tell you,
double whammy.
was able to get hundreds of billions of dollars put into NATO just by a tough attitude. I said to the countries, I'm not going to protect you unless you pay. And they started paying. And that amounted to more than $600 billion. That's a big thing. Otherwise, they wouldn't even be fighting. They wouldn't have any.
When Trump says paying here, what he means is NATO countries in the West and in Europe, they are sleeping on position. Although I don't agree with majority of what Trump does, I have to agree with the message that US is protecting the freelancers in Europe. US is paying and for the protection of Europe, although Europe is fully capable of protecting themselves. I mean, I am in Estonia, I'm Estonian, I'm part of Europe, I'm part of NATO, and I say this, I agree with his message. European Union leaders need to wake up and pay for their own security. We're doing it in Estonia, we're moving towards 5% of GDP towards military expenditure. Poland is moving towards 6%, Finland is doing it, but the rest, time to wake up. And if Trump is threatening taking the US out of NATO, I don't agree with that. It's a very bad communication. What I do agree with is that the European leaders need a strong shake-up. Now, my friends, we will jump to Georgia, where the protests are still going on and they are organizing into another level every day. In this video, we can see angry citizens confronting a police, accusing them of ignoring pleas for help and refusing to act as 30 masked men identified as Georgian Dream thugs attacked Office of Coalition of Change in full view of the officers. So, majority of these officers who do nothing are paid by the Georgian Dream just to look away, just not to react. So, to count that, the police is not helping them, the protesters have organized. No longer allowing thugs from the Russian-backed government to brutally beat both men and women protesters, tonight Georgians have formed large groups of fit men that are ready to destroy filthy government goons. So they have formed their own so-called militias to defend the protesters. And in this video, it's just a very interesting video. This is a private security man securing some kind of pro-Russian VIPs in Georgia, and you can see him pulling his gun for to shoot the protesters, but there's too many of them, and then he puts it back, backs off, still backs off, and finally goes into the car. No shots fired here, but he made a wise decision, because if he would have pulled that trigger, he would be no more. That's it from Georgia. Again, I'll keep you up to date of all of these geographical regions on Wednesday. Thank you for watching, my friends. Thank you for giving me a position that I'm in. I'm able to funnel this information and do something I believe in. And that is all thanks to you. If you want to support the channel, become a monthly member of Buy Me a Coffee, and I'll be sending you a Rehi patch. Write to me and buy me a coffee, and I'll be sending one of these out to you. Until my next video, my friends, Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.